So let's talk games, shall we? I'll get to who I am and what Hatch is in a few minutes. But when this talk was first announced, I was asked this question by a journalist after the title of the talk, which is Bringing People Together Over the Games We Love. The journalist asked, so many people would say games do not bring people together, but separate them. Technologies are often criticized because of bringing lack of live communication between people. So how can games really bring people together? I think that is an excellent question. This is also a question very much of our times. The fact that this question can be asked in 2017 says a lot about the times we live in. But maybe it doesn't say so much about games per se, because if you were to step into a time machine and ask this question, people would find it bizarre. So games have always been social. This here is an illustration from the 13th century Book of Games. I don't know if there are any games historians among us, but this is really one of the seminal works in the history of games, documents. This here game is this is a 7-person multiplayer, real-time multiplayer game of astrological checkers. This was cutting edge in the year 1283. In fact, the anonymous monks in Toledo who compiled the Book of Games noted this particular pastime as, quote, very noble, strange, beautiful, and of great understanding for learned men. Now, I have to confess, I'm probably not so learned because just looking at the board here, I think I would have absolutely no clue how to proceed. But maybe you got the hang. Maybe it's the type of game that you got the hang of as you started playing. But the point here is, it's not 7D checkers based on medieval astrology, though that's the substance of the game. The point is that this is something for these people to do together for fun. And the people in the illustration are just as important as the diagram of the board itself. The purpose of this game is for these people to take part in an activity that is very noble, strange, beautiful, and of great understanding. And isn't that a wonderful description of what a game can be? So thank you, anonymous 13th century monk. Fast forward 7 centuries, this is still the case. The best games of today, from board games to local multiplayer games, to on consoles to many mobile games, they can be tremendously noble sometimes, very often very strange, or at least very weird, and yes, very beautiful and indeed of great understanding. I don't want to linger too much on this point, but if anyone's looking for a book recommendation, I really, really cannot recommend enough a book called How Games Move Us, Emotion by Design. It's by Catherine Isbister, and she had this to say. From playground tag to chess, card games and board games, to Minecraft and Call of Duty, the long history of games is primarily a story of rules and equipment created to engage people socially. And I think that's just, so given that, and given this long history, what happened? This pretty much sums up the problems of gaming in the mobile era perfectly, or just not just gaming, but society. How sociable does this person look? I'm not sure, although she definitely appears to be having a good time, so good for her, regardless of the world or traffic going on around here. And she is indeed helping to create jobs for the seeing eye person industry. And this is huge business. By revenue, games is the largest sector within the entertainment industry, and within games, the biggest sector is, of course, on mobile. the app economy surpassed Hollywood a few years ago. It's the one place where everyone is, more than 2 billion smartphone owners worldwide. If you want to reach a mass audience, you've got to be on mobile. This isn't news. Most gamers are mobile gamers. But playing on your phone isn't terribly social. There are some notable exceptions. Pokemon Go, to return to a very popular example, was absolutely brilliant, and still is, at getting people out and about together and exploring their towns in a new way. I'm a big Pokemon Go fan. But for the most part, social gaming on mobile means seeing your friends score, or perhaps playing anonymously with huge amounts of strangers in a massive multiplayer online game. Can be very rewarding, pretty cool, but to what extent is that a shared experience with a real person in your life? And you know, most mobile game companies, and certainly the one I work for, we are all working on ways to make their experiences more social. You know, this is really the problem that most of us are working on every day. Game companies understand that the more social a game is, the longer people will play the game, and the more people will talk about the game and get others to play with them. It's a key driver for retention, it's good PR, and it's much more cost-effective to do paid user acquisition for a great social game. I believe we're at the very beginning stages of what social gaming can be on mobile, and there are three broader trends converging that are changing this game and opening up some pretty interesting opportunities to bring people together over games on mobile. The first two are broadly technological. Cloudification of more data and services, cloudification not just of data, but applications, utilizing the computing power of the cloud to do things with your mobile device that were not possible before. Secondly, the growth of mobile broadband. Really excellent kick-ass Wi-Fi is pretty universal. And in places where you're not covered by Wi-Fi, you've got really good 4G mobile networks, especially in Europe. And then, 5 years down the road, we're looking at pretty serious 5G penetration as well. So, mobile broadband and data are getting cheaper every day and more accessible every day. And the third is something that's enabled by the first two technological trends. It's something that is sometimes called the subscription economy, and it has already brought radical change to how consumers engage with other forms of entertainment. You're looking at a couple of graphs here, Netflix users and Spotify users. So Netflix and Spotify are the prime examples of the trend towards subscriptions. But it's not just them. You also see frequent appearances in the top grossing charts of other subscription-based entertainment or lifestyle offerings, such as coloring books like Recolor, or yoga training like Yogaya. 5 out of 5 top grossing apps in the non-gaming category last year were all subscription-based services: Spotify, Netflix, HBO, Pandora, and Hulu. And both major app stores, iOS and Google Play, have reported dramatic increases in subscription revenue, and they see that trend continuing. To sum up, ongoing subscription-based content services with personalized and social offerings are very much in demand. And given this consumer trend, the landscape is ripe to make something similar for mobile games, and in the process, perhaps also make them a lot more social. And now, this is the part where I talk about what we at Hatch are working on, which is very much a proactive response to this landscape. Hatch is an app on your phone for playing games, much like you have apps for watching movies or listening to music. Hatch began as a project within Rovio and spun off last year as a separate company when it became clear that this had to be its own business. We started by asking ourselves, what if there were an open, approachable place where people could play the best games on demand with no downloads, updates, or applications to manage? So really, make gaming more approachable and more accessible. A place to enjoy real social interaction with people in your life. A place where you could play and share every game together. And also, and this is really important to me, and I think to a lot of game developers and lovers of great games, a place where different types of games could thrive and find a mass audience that they deserve. So Hatch this is a glimpse into the UI of Hatch, of the app. Hatch is a social gaming platform. It's a streaming service for mobile games. And by streaming, I mean actually playing games, not watching them, although you can do that too. To start playing, you just browse the Hatch content flow. It's a specially curated game collection, and press play to play. This makes games available to play immediately on demand and a lot more approachable to mass audiences. User data from the cloud also makes personalized gaming experiences, recommendations, and also makes new social features possible, which I will get to in a second. Cloud gaming also means that, and this again is extremely important to me from a developer point of view, cloud gaming also means that a whole new pathway to monetize premium games has opened. So when you have subscription revenues from an instant game collection on demand, always ready to play, radically opens up the playing field to more than just a handful of free-to-play genres that currently monetize well. If you're in free-to-play games, and I have a background there, you know that there are a handful of genres that work in various combinations, and there's a lot of really interesting innovations there. But it really has changed the way games are made, and sometimes for the better, and sometimes really not for the better. But anyway, now one of the questions I promised to answer in this presentation was, what can game developers do to get people talking about their game, to get into the cultural conversation? This is a huge problem for mobile game developers. There's just so much out there to play. And when you're with your friends, you're honestly a lot less likely to talk about the games you're playing on your phone than you are about what you're watching on Netflix or what movies you want to see, because these are the things that people have in common. That's your shared experience. Most of us may be playing games, but we tend to be playing them alone in isolation. But that could change if you had the ability to easily use your own game experience to tell your story, to say something to your friends, to make the game you've been playing more than a game, but a piece of communication. The Hatch app is always recording the last 30 seconds of your gameplay. So whenever you do something awesome in a game, or stupid, or whatever, you can immediately hit pause and start editing a short video. You don't need to think ahead of time, okay, now I'm going to start recording, and the sort of typical esports way of performing in a game. When something has accidentally happened, that's really cool, you've instantly got it. You just hit pause and trim that previous 30 seconds down to whatever length you want, add drawings or captions, and instantly share to your live feed in Hatch or to other social networks. Back at the office, we've been calling these shareable gameplay moments Hatches. And today, here at Login, I wanted to do something special for you. So we are currently in closed beta. We have some 100 of users or so. Not much has really been seen publicly about how people are playing in Hatch at this point, but today this will be the world's first publicly shown Hatch in just a second. This is, and I wanted to make it good, so here we go. This is me out for a peaceful drive. The game is called Beach Buggy Racing, and I really, really feel bad for that seagull. Apologies, seagull. But that's a Hatch. It's a short, sharp, and shareable clip of gameplay, as easy to share with your friends as a photo on Instagram. When you share a Hatch, it goes to your friends' live feeds within the app, where friends can comment, like, and reshare. You can also post to other social networks, as I said. And this is great for developers because now, you can turn your players also into your marketing channel, in a way. And you get people to use your experience in the game as a means of communicating and signaling. So I think this is really key. It allows users to get creative and invites them to share their experiences in a new way. And now, are you ready for the second publicly shared Hatch? This continues an automotive theme. This is my colleague, Sarah. She's showing off her stunt driving abilities. Let me just hit this one. This is a game called Bridge Constructor Stunts. And if I'm Sarah's friend, I follow what she has to say, whether in my Hatch live feed or other social networks. I just became a lot more likely to try out this game and see if I can do something like it. The next time I meet Sarah in person, I might actually bring up this game and we might actually start talking about it instead of what we're watching on Netflix. So suddenly the conversation has changed. Now, finally, I'm only going to show you one more, but it relates to another feature that's enabled by the cloud. And basically, a little bit, so I'm going to get into a bit of technical talk now. So typically in online multiplayer gaming, you have multiple game instances running of a game, right? So you have, everyone's got a full binary running of a game somewhere, and then all these multiple, like 4 or 5 different multiple game instances are connected via complex networking protocols. And this system doesn't really always work very well. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes you get kicked out of the room. Sometimes things happen. So when you have the multiplayer architecture based in the cloud, you have literally just one game instance running on our cloud server. And that cloud server is rendering the game and taking commands from any number of devices. Could be just one if you're playing by yourself. Could be 2 if you're playing with a friend. We can actually handle currently more than a dozen different players at one time. So if you're a developer and you're thinking about making your game an online multiplayer game, it can be really, really expensive to do that. This way, all you need is effectively a local multiplayer, same screen game. If you can design that, then you can very easily implement the Hatch API, and you can turn your local multiplayer game into an online multiplayer game. And this is exactly what is being done with a game called Badland. This is a really wonderful mobile game, one of my all-time favorites, released by a Finnish small indie studio called Frogmind, our neighbors in Helsinki. They have local multiplayer, very popular feature on the game. They always wanted to make it online multiplayer, but it just wasn't worth the trouble for them and the money. But now it's a reality. Basically, this is my colleague Christian. He invited me into his game of Badlands so we could play together. I'm the orange guy, and he's the yellow guy. And this is an example of teamwork, or lack thereof. So, yeah, we didn't. So, these is, let's watch this failure one more time. So, sharing hatches is not just about sharing achievements, it's also about celebrating your failure. And I think there's a lot of potential for comedy in these. I think the point is this is a shared experience with a real person in my life, and this is new. So right now, we have about 60 partners on board, more than 60 partners on board, game developers, studios, publishers, everyone from small indie teams to big major players like Ubisoft and Bandai Namco. We, like I said, we haven't launched publicly yet. We're still in closed beta. But we've already got a game collection of about 150 games, all within one app, all instantly shareable, all playable with other people, and very intensely social. So if you're a game developer, if you're here, there's sort of an open invitation to you to come find me, come up to talk to us. And if you've got a great game, maybe we can help bring people together over it. So let's make the world a nobler, more beautiful place with great understanding. I will leave you with that thought and a video, which kind of sums everything up in about a minute. So let's just watch that now.
This is for you, the pioneers, the rookies and the pros, the influencers, the late-nighters and the early risers. This is for you, the entertainers, the creative and the curious, and the arcade lovers. This is for you, who want something different, something you haven't seen before, a place to share new experiences, where you can enjoy every game together, where friends meet for a good time at any time, changing the way you play and changing the game forever. This is for you. Hatch, the game changer.
All right, well, thank you very much. If you have any questions, now would be a good time.